Ladies and gentlemen, friends and seekers of purpose, today I stand before you with one simple question: why not you? For far too long, too many of us have allowed doubt, fear, and circumstances to define who we are and what we can do. We look at others and say, that person is destined for greatness, but we fail to see the same potential within ourselves. We think the dreams, the success, and the calling are meant for someone else. But let me remind you, why not you? It is easy to fall into the trap of thinking that we are too small, too ordinary, or too weak to make a real difference. We carry the weight of self-doubt and fear. We allow the voices in our heads to convince us that we are unworthy, incapable, or not good enough. But listen closely. These are lies that rob us of the courage to step out and step up. You see, each of us is created with a purpose. There is a plan for your life, and it is far greater than anything you've imagined. God has a plan for you, and it is a good plan. It's not a plan for mediocrity or defeat. It's a plan for victory, for influence, for change. You are not here by accident. You are here with a purpose. The road to fulfilling that purpose begins with a choice to stop believing in the lies that tell you you're not enough. You're enough. You are equipped, you are capable, and you're worthy. And you have been given everything you need to succeed. All that's left is for you to believe it. Now, I know many of you here are wrestling with fear. Fear of failure, fear of rejection, fear of not being good enough. But remember this: courage is not the absence of fear. It is the willingness to act in spite of it. You don't have to have all the answers. You don't have to know the exact path, but you do have to take the first step. In our journey through life, we must also recognize the power of our influence. You may think that your actions, your words, or your efforts don't matter much, but let me tell you something. They matter more than you think. The people around you, your family, your community, they are watching. Your courage, your faith, your perseverance, these inspire others more than you may ever realize. But to inspire others, we must first believe in ourselves. Believe that we are capable of overcoming the obstacles before us, that we are strong enough to face the challenges ahead. Yes, life will throw its curveballs, but let me remind you, you are stronger than you think. It's time to break free from the chains that have held you back for far too long. Let go of the past, let go of those failures and regrets. They don't define you. They are stepping stones, lessons along the way to something greater. You might be wondering, how do I start? Let me tell you. It doesn't require a grand gesture. It's the small, consistent steps that lead to transformation. Each day you choose to move forward, no matter how small the progress, you are moving closer to the person you were always meant to be. There is power in your journey, and the world is waiting for you to embrace it. Don't let fear, doubt, or the opinions of others keep you from stepping into your destiny. You are called to rise, to take action, and to be the change the world so desperately needs. Why not step into your purpose? Why not trust that the best is yet to come? Why not believe that you have everything it takes to succeed and to make a difference? Friends, you are not too young, not too old, not too weak, and not too insignificant. You're the one who can change the world. It all begins with one simple decision: to believe in yourself, in your purpose, and in the greatness that lies within you. Self-doubt is a powerful force that cripples the soul, whispering lies in the mind, convincing us that we are incapable of achieving our dreams, and it often begins in the quiet corners of our hearts, where we wrestle with our inner fears. Whether we are good enough or deserving of success as we look at others and compare ourselves, telling ourselves that they are smarter, more talented, more equipped for greatness, and in those moments, we begin to forget the truth that we have within us all that we need to rise above our doubts, to overcome the limitations that we so often place on ourselves. But these limits are not real. They are merely illusions created by our fears and insecurities as we hold ourselves back from reaching our full potential, imagining that the path to success is too difficult, too long, or too out of reach, when in fact, the journey begins with a single step: a decision to believe in ourselves, to trust that we are more than capable of breaking through the walls of limitation that we have built around ourselves. Because if we are willing to push past the fear, to silence the negative voices that try to speak louder than our own, we will find that we are more than capable of achieving things we never thought possible. But it starts with the choice to stop listening to those voices of doubt, to stop letting them dictate who we are and what we can do, because deep inside, every one of us has been given a gift, a purpose that is unique to us, and this purpose is not held back by the limitations we place upon ourselves, but by the choices we make to believe in the possibilities. And as we learn to trust in our abilities, we begin to see the doors of opportunity opening wide before us. And we begin to realize that the only true limitation is the one we place on our own belief in ourselves. And the moment we break free from that prison of self-doubt, we unlock a world of potential and promise. Because with each step forward, we grow stronger, more confident, and more aware of the power within us. And when we no longer allow fear to govern our actions, we become unstoppable. And the limitations that once seemed so real will fade into the background, leaving us to claim the life that we were always meant to live. A life not bound by the smallness of our doubts, but propelled by the greatness of our potential. And in this freedom, we begin to see that the only thing standing in our way is our own unwillingness to take that first, to believe that we are worthy of the greatness that is waiting for us on the other side of fear. And once we make that choice, once we decide that we are no longer going to be limited by our doubts and fears, we become the architects of our own futures, capable of creating the life we've always dreamed of. And it is in that moment, when we choose to believe in ourselves, that the world begins to change for us, opening up endless possibilities and opportunities. Because when we walk in faith, when we step into life we were destined, we find that there are no limits to what we can achieve. God's purpose for you is not an accident. It is intentional, woven into the very fabric of your being. And he knew you before you were born. He knew you. He just defined your mind as saying that it's uniquely yours. And it doesn't matter where you've come from or what your past looks like, because his purpose for you is not defined by your mistakes or shortcomings, but by his incredible love for you and the gifts he has placed inside you. And these gifts are meant to be shared with the world in ways only you can. But you were not created to live an ordinary life. You were designed to make an impact, to shine a light, to fulfill a role that no one else can. And it's easy to forget this truth when we face challenges, when life throws obstacles in our path. But these struggles are not signs that God's purpose for us has failed. Rather, they are opportunities for us to grow, to stretch, to trust in his plan, even when we cannot see the whole picture. Because God's purpose is not always about what we can immediately understand or control. It is about trusting in his wisdom and timing, knowing that he works all things together for our good. And as we walk through life, we may encounter times of doubt or confusion when we wonder if we're on the right path. But it is in those moments of uncertainty that we are called to lean in closer to him, to trust that he is guiding our steps, even when we cannot see where they are leading. And there will be moments when we feel unqualified or unworthy of the purpose he has for us. But it's not about our own strength or ability. It's about his grace and his power working through us. Because God often calls the unlikely, the broken, the imperfect to fulfill his great purposes. And it is in our weakness that his strength is made perfect, and through his guidance, we begin to realize that our purpose is bigger than ourselves. It's about serving others, impacting our communities, and glorifying him in all that we do. And the beauty of God's purpose for you is that it is not just about a career or a title. It is about a way of life, a way of living with intention, with passion, and with a heart to make a difference in the lives of others. Because when we are walking in his purpose, we experience true fulfillment and peace, knowing that we are exactly where we are meant to be, doing exactly what we were created to do. And though the journey may not always be easy, though the road may be long, it is always worth it. Because God's purpose for you is not something to be earned or achieved by your own effort. It is a gift, a calling to step into a life of meaning and significance. And when we choose to follow him, we walk in alignment with the very purpose for which we were created. And the more we surrender to his plan, the more we experience the depth of joy, peace, and fulfillment that comes from knowing we are fulfilling the purpose God has set before us. A purpose that is greater than we could ever imagine. And in this, we find that our lives have eternal value, and that all we do, no matter how small, is part of a grander divine plan that we can trust. Because God's purpose for you will always lead you to the best version of yourself and to a life of impact. And when you walk in his purpose, you walk in the fullness of his love and his destiny for your life. And there is no greater calling than to live out God's purpose for you. A calling that is uniquely yours, crafted with care, filled with hope, and designed for the greatest good. Overcoming fear is one of the greatest challenges we face as human beings, for fear is a natural part of life, something we all experience in different forms, whether it's the fear of failure, the fear of rejection, the fear of the unknown, or the fear of not being good enough, and often these fears paralyze us, keeping us from stepping out into the life we were meant to live, holding us back from pursuing our dreams, our calling, and our purpose. And in those moments when fear feels overwhelming, it's easy to believe that we are alone, that we are the only ones who struggle. But the truth is, fear is something that we all face, and it's something to be ashamed of, but rather something to confront, because fear does not have to control us. It does not have to define us, and it certainly does not have to stop us from moving forward. For it is in the face of fear that courage is born, and courage is not the absence of fear, but the willingness to move forward despite it. Something worth stepping into, even if we can't see it clearly just yet. And it's in these moments when fear threatens to overtake us that we must remind ourselves of the truth, that fear is not the end of the road. It's just a barrier, a challenge. It's a barrier, challenge, a test of our faith. And the reality is that we have been given everything we need to overcome it, for we are not called to live in fear, but in faith. And as we begin to take small steps forward, even when the fear feels heavy, we begin to realize that we are stronger than we think, that with each step, the fear begins to lose its grip, because fear is often fueled by the unknown, by the stories we tell ourselves about what might happen. But when we face our fears head on, when we take that first step into the unknown, we begin to see that it's not nearly as scary as we imagine. And with each victory, no matter how small, we gain confidence, and that confidence becomes the fuel that propels us forward into new territories, into new opportunities, into new possibilities. And as we continue to overcome, we discover that it's not something to be avoided, but something to be embraced. For in overcoming fear, we become more than we ever thought possible. We grow stronger, we grow braver, and we grow more resilient. And the beauty of this journey is that fear will never fully disappear, but rather it becomes something we learn to navigate, something we learn to use as a tool to push us further. And the more we choose to face our fears, the less power they have over us, and the more we experience the freedom that comes from living a life unshackled by the chains of fear. A life that is free to explore, to dream, to create, to try, to fail, and to try again, because fear no longer has the final word. And as we walk forward with courage, with faith, and with trust in God's plan for us, we find that fear becomes less of an obstacle and more of a stepping stone, guiding us toward the person we are meant to become and the life we were meant to live, because in overcoming fear, we discover a new kind of strength, a strength that is not our own, but comes from the one who gives us the courage to keep going no matter what. And it's in this strength that we find true freedom, a freedom to live boldly, to take risks, to pursue our passions, and to walk in the confidence that we are capable of facing anything that comes our way, knowing that fear may visit, but it will never have the power to stop us again. The power of choice is one of the most profound gifts we've been given, for it is through our choices that we shape our lives, determine our paths, and decide who we will become. And each day we are presented with countless choices, big and small, that can either move us closer to our purpose or lead us away from it. And though it can sometimes feel as though life is happening to us, the reality is that we have far more control over our circumstances than we realize, for we have the ability to choose how we respond to situations, to people, to challenges, and to opportunities. And with each choice we make, we are either reinforcing the life we've always known or creating a new reality, one step at a time, because every decision, even the seemingly insignificant ones, adds up to a life of either growth or stagnation. And it is in the moments of decision that we reveal who we truly are, for our choices reflect our values, our priorities, and our beliefs. And while we cannot always control the external factors that influence us, we can always choose how we will respond. And when we choose with intention, with wisdom, and with purpose, we begin to take ownership of our destiny. For we realize that we are not victims of circumstance, but rather co-creators of our own journey. And as we make deliberate choices, we begin to see that the power to change our lives lies not in waiting for the perfect moment or the ideal conditions, but in the courage to make a decision, even when it feels uncomfortable, even when the road ahead is unclear, because it is through action that we find direction. And the power of choice is not just in the grand decisions, but in the small, everyday choices that add up over time, like the decision to get out of bed with purpose, the decision to be kind to others, the decision to take care of our health, and the decision to grow in our faith. Because it's these daily choices that determine the trajectory of our lives, and as we recognize the incredible power we hold in our hands, we begin to understand that our choices can either lift us up or weigh us down, and so we must choose wisely, and sometimes Choosing wisely means saying no to the things that distract us, the things that keep us from fulfilling our true calling, and saying yes to the things that align with our deepest values and passions. And in making these choices, we not only transform our own lives, but we also influence the lives of those around us. For every choice we make has a ripple effect, touching the lives of others in ways we may never fully understand. And this realization gives us an even greater sense of responsibility, for we understand that our choices matter and that the life we create is not just for us, but for the generations that will follow. And when we embrace the power of choice, we begin to live intentionally, with a clear sense of direction and purpose, knowing that each moment is an opportunity to choose the kind of person we want to be, the kind of life we want to live, and the kind of impact we want to have on the world. And it is through these choices made day after day that we build a life of significance. And though the journey may not always be easy, and though we will face moments of doubt and uncertainty, the power of choice remains with us. And it is in these moments when we feel unsure that we must remind ourselves that we are not powerless, but we are empowered, because we can always choose to rise, to move forward, to trust in God's plan for us, and to walk in the confidence that each choice, no matter how small, is part of the great tapestry of our lives, and that the power of choice will always be a guiding force. A reminder that we hold the keys to our own destiny, and with every choice we make, we are writing the story of our lives, a story that is uniquely ours, full of purpose, full of potential, and full of possibility. Inner strength is a quiet yet powerful force that resides within each of us, often hidden beneath the surface, waiting to be called upon in moments of adversity. And it is in those moments of challenge, pain, and hardship that we begin to discover the depth of this strength. For it is not something that we can see or touch, but something that emerges when we least expect it. And while the world may try to convince us strength is only found in physical power or external success, true inner strength comes from within, from our hearts, from our faith, and from our ability to stand tall in the face of difficulty, even when the storm seems unrelenting. And it is through the trials of life that this strength is forged, through the struggles that test our resolve and push us to our limits. And though we may feel weak, exhausted, or broken, it is in these very moments that we are reminded of our resilience, our ability to rise again, to keep going even when the way seems unclear. And it is in the depths of our struggle that we realize that inner strength is not about never falling, but about finding the courage to get back up after each fall, to keep moving forward even when every step feels like a challenge. And as we face the battles in our lives, we learn that this strength does not come from our own might, but from something far greater, from the love that sustains us, and from the belief that we are never alone in our journey. For inner strength is not just a human quality, but a divine gift, something that God has placed within us to help us endure, to help us overcome, and to help us achieve the unimaginable. And while there may be times when we feel like giving up, when the weight of the world seems too much to bear, it is in these moments that our inner strength rises up, often in ways we never expected, pushing us to keep going, to find hope where there seems to be none, and to trust that we are capable of far more than we ever thought possible. For inner strength is not about perfection or never feeling weak, but about the determination to continue, to persevere, to show up, and to trust that even in our moments of weakness, we are being strengthened in ways that will prepare us for the next chapter of our lives. And as we walk through the valleys and climb the mountains of life, we come to understand that true inner strength is not just about enduring, but about transforming, about growing into the person we are meant to be. And as we grow, we become more aware of this power within us. And it begins to shape how we respond to every situation, how we treat others, and how we see ourselves. For when we tap into this inner strength, we realize that we are far more capable than we ever gave ourselves credit for. And it is in our moments of greatest struggle that we are reminded of the vast well of strength that lies within, waiting for us to call upon it. And when we do, we are transformed, becoming not just stronger, but wiser, more compassionate, and more resilient. And in this, we find that inner strength is not just a force we use to survive, but a gift that empowers us to thrive, to rise above, and to live with a boldness that we never thought possible. And as we continue to lean into this strength, we discover that it is limitless, because it is not based on our own abilities or efforts, but on the unshakable foundation of faith, trust, and love. And it is this inner strength that sustains us through the hardest of days and carries us into the brightest of futures. For once we discover the power within, we realize that nothing, no obstacle, no challenge, no fear can ever truly defeat us. Breaking the chains that bind us is one of the most powerful journeys we can embark upon, for so often we find ourselves shackled by fears, past mistakes, insecurities, addictions, and negative thought patterns. And while these chains may not always be visible to the naked eye, they can weigh heavily on our hearts and minds, keeping us trapped in cycles of self-doubt, regret, and limitation. And the struggle to break free from these chains can sometimes feel overwhelming, as if they are a part of us, like an invisible force that constantly holds us back from the life we know we were meant to live. But the truth is, these chains do not have the power to define us. They do not have the power to control our destiny. And in every moment, we have the choice to break free, to choose freedom, to choose to no longer be a prisoner of our past or our fears. For the power to break the chains lies within us, and it starts with a decision, a commitment to no longer accept the lies that have held us captive. And while it may not be easy, and while the road to freedom is often filled with obstacles, the truth is that each step we take toward breaking free is a victory. And with each small act of courage, we begin to loosen the grip of those chains, realizing that the chains of fear, guilt, and doubt were never truly as strong as we thought. And it is in those moments of clarity, when we choose to stand up and move forward, that we begin to experience the freedom that comes from within. For the chains we face are not just external, but often internal, the chains of our own thoughts, our own beliefs about ourselves. And it is these chains that must first be broken. And as we work to dismantle these chains, we begin to see that the power to change our lives was always there, waiting for us to claim it. And as we lean into our faith, trust in our worth, and let go of the negative self-talk that has held us back, we begin to realize that breaking the chains is not a one-time event, but a daily choice, a continuous journey of self-discovery, healing, and growth. And as we move forward, we learn to replace the chains of fear and doubt with the chains of hope and courage. And the more we choose to walk in the light of who we truly are, the more the chains begin to fall away one by one until we stand free, no longer bound by the things that once held us back. And in this freedom, we find that we are capable of living the life we were always meant to live, a life of purpose, of passion, and of peace. And though the journey to break free may not always be easy, we come to understand that it is in the breaking that we find our true strength, for it is in the act of breaking the chains that we are made whole. And as we step into our new life, we realize that the freedom we found is not just for us, but for those around us. For when we break the chains that bind us, we also break the chains that bind others. And in this shared freedom, we are able to inspire others to do the same, creating a ripple effect that can change the world. And so we must remember that breaking the chains is not a journey that we take alone, but one that we walk with others. And in this, we discover that the chains that once held us back have no power over us anymore, for we are free, and in our freedom, we live with a boldness and a courage that can never be taken from us. The call to action is a powerful invitation, one that stirs the heart and awakens the soul to the realization that life is not meant to be passive, but active, a call to rise up, to step forward, to take the reins of our destiny and live with purpose. To no longer sit idly by while the world passes us, but to be the change we wish to see, to make a difference in the lives of others, and in doing so, to change our own. For we are not meant to merely exist. We are meant to make an impact, to answer the call that beckons us to take action, no matter how small or how large, because every act of courage, every step of faith, has the power to ripple out and create a legacy that lasts. And though the world may often seem overwhelming, filled with challenges that can cause us to hesitate or doubt our ability, the truth is that within each of us is the strength, the wisdom, and the power to make a difference. And this call to action is not just a challenge, but an opportunity to step into the fullness of who we were always meant to be, to take the gifts, talents, and resources that we've been given and use them for something greater than ourselves, to pour into the lives of others, to build, to create, to serve, and to love. For when we act with purpose, when we move with intention, we not only transform the world around us, but we also transform ourselves. And as we answer this call, we begin to see that it is not about waiting for the perfect moment or the ideal circumstances, but about taking what we have right where we are and doing something with it, something meaningful, something impactful, because even the smallest acts, when done with love and purpose, have the potential to change lives. And it is through these actions that we begin to build momentum, that we begin to see that our efforts are not in vain, but are part of a larger story, a greater movement, one that connects us to the people around us, to the world at large, and ultimately to the calling that God has placed on our hearts. For He does not call us to sit on the sidelines, but to get in the game, to use our voices, our hands, our feet, to bring about change. And while it is easy to look at the enormity of the world's problems and feel powerless, the truth is that the power lies in our willingness to act, to take one step, to make one choice, to speak one word that can spark something bigger, something more profound. And the beauty of the call to action is that it is not a call to perfection, but a call to movement, to progress, to growth. And even when we fall, even when we stumble, the call to action remains, urging us to get back up, to keep moving forward, to keep striving. For in the act of persistence, in the act of choosing to continue, we find strength we never knew we had, and we begin to realize that the real power is not in the outcome, but in the act of stepping out in faith and choosing to believe that what we do matters, that we matter, and that each decision, each act, no matter how small, is part of a larger divine plan that only we can fulfill. And it is in this that we find our true purpose. For the call to action is not just about what we do, but who we become in the process, the kind of person who chooses to make a difference, who chooses to take responsibility, who chooses to act, knowing that through every challenge, through every difficulty, through every moment of doubt, there is a purpose in our actions. And when we answer the call, we become part of something bigger than ourselves, something that can change the world. And in this, we find fulfillment, peace, and a sense of purpose that transcends anything we could ever achieve on our own. For the call to action is not just a summons to act, but a summons to live fully, to live boldly, to live with purpose. And in doing so, we fulfill the reason we were created, to make an impact, to serve others, and to walk in the fullness of the calling that's been placed on our lives. Living with purpose is a profound and intentional way of life, one that calls us to wake up each day with clarity and passion, to move through our lives not by accident or by mere routine, but with a deep understanding that every moment, every decision, every interaction carries meaning. And though the world around us may be full of distractions, challenges, and obstacles, it is in choosing to live with purpose that we find direction. For purpose is not just something we discover once and then forget, but something that evolves with us, something that guides us through every season of life, shaping our goals, our values, and our priorities. And our priorities, when we live with purpose, we no longer wander aimlessly, but we walk with confidence, knowing that our lives have meaning, knowing that our lives have meanings no matter how small. Are part of a larger plan, and it is in this understanding that we find strength and resilience, for purpose is a source of energy and determination. And it sustains us through the hardships, the uncertainties, and the trials we face, reminding us that there is a reason for everything, even when we can't see it in the moment. And it is in this pursuit of purpose that we begin to experience fulfillment. For when we align our actions with our deeper values, we feel a sense of peace and joy that transcends external circumstances. Because living with purpose is about more than just achieving success or reaching goals. It is about being true to who we are, being authentic in our pursuits, and understanding that our worth is not defined by what we do, but by who we are. And as we live with purpose, we are called to serve others, to use our unique gifts and talents to make a difference in the world. For purpose is never meant to be self-centered, but outward focused. And when we serve others, we find that our own lives become richer, deeper, and more meaningful. And as we grow in understanding of our purpose, we come to realize that it is not always a grand or dramatic path, but often it is found in the everyday moments, the simple choices, and the quiet acts of kindness and love. For purpose is not about doing something extraordinary, but about living authentically in harmony with our values and embracing the beauty of the journey. And when we align our lives with purpose, we are no longer driven by fear, doubt, or external validation, but by an inner knowing that we are exactly where we are meant to be, doing exactly what we are meant to do, and even when the road gets tough and the path seems unclear, it is in these moments that purpose becomes our anchor, reminding us to keep moving forward, to trust the process, and to believe that every step, no matter how small, is part of a greater story, a story that is unfolding with meaning. And it is this story that calls us to persevere, to grow, and to keep living with intention, For the beauty of living with purpose is that it not only transforms our lives, but it also touches the lives of others, inspiring them to find their own purpose, to live with clarity, to act with confidence, and to embrace the unique journey that only they can walk. And in this shared pursuit of purpose, we create a community of like-minded individuals who are not just living for themselves, but are working together to make the world a better place, one intentional step at a time. And the power of living with purpose is that it is limitless. For as long as we breathe, as long as we walk this earth, we have the opportunity to grow, to change, and to refine our purpose. And in doing so, we are constantly becoming more of who we are meant to be. And though the road may not always be smooth or easy, it is in living with purpose that we find our greatest joy, our deepest fulfillment, and our most profound peace, because living with purpose means living with intention, and living with intention means living with meaning. And when we live with meaning, we discover that the struggles, the challenges, the setbacks are not just obstacles, but opportunities for growth. And through this journey, we learn that purpose is not something we find and then finish, but something that we continue to live into with each passing day, with each decision, with each step forward. And it is in this continuous pursuit of purpose that we become the best version of ourselves, creating lives that are rich in meaning, full of love, and brimming with the potential to make a lasting impact on the world. The importance of faith cannot be overstated, for faith is the foundation upon which everything else is built. It is the quiet yet powerful force that anchors us in the midst of uncertainty. It is the belief in something greater than ourselves, something that transcends the immediate and the temporary, guiding us through the storms of life and offering us a hope that does not waver, even when the world around us feels unstable. And it is in the presence of faith that we find the courage to take steps into the unknown, to move forward when we cannot see the entire path, and to trust that each step is leading us towards something greater. And faith is not just about believing in the visible or the tangible, but in the unseen, the intangible, the things that cannot be touched or measured, yet are real in their power to transform. And when we live with faith, we understand that we are not alone, that we are part of a greater story, a story that has been unfolding long before us and will continue long after us. And it is this faith that carries us through moments of fear and moments of confusion, reminding us that there is a plan, even when we cannot see it. And that plan is not just for us individually, but for the world, for all of humanity. And it is in our faith that we find our connection to us. For faith does not isolate, it unites. It binds us together in a shared belief that there is meaning in this life, and through our faith we are called to live with purpose, to act with love, and to trust in the goodness of the world, even when it is hard to see. And the power of faith is not in its ability to shield us from pain or hardship, but in its ability to sustain us through them. For faith gives us the strength to endure, to rise again when we fall, to keep going when everything inside us wants to give up. And it is in these moments of challenge that faith proves its worth, for it is not in the easy moments that we grow, but in the trials, the tests, the seasons of struggle. And faith gives us the perspective to see beyond the temporary, to understand that what we are facing now is not the end, but a part of the journey. And with faith, we are able to look beyond the present moment and see the possibilities that lie ahead, even when the way seems unclear. And faith allows us to release the need for control, to surrender our plans, our desires, and our timelines to a higher purpose, trusting that what is meant for us will come in its time, and that our lives are not defined by our own efforts alone, but by a divine plan that is unfolding with precision and purpose. And when we have faith, we do not live in fear of the unknown, for we know that we are guided, that we are protected, and that we are loved. And it is in this love that we find the courage to move forward, to take risks, to step out in faith, knowing that even if we stumble, we will not fall forever. For faith is not about perfection, but about truth. And it is this trust that empowers us to keep going, to keep believing, and to keep loving. And as we grow in faith, we begin to understand that it is not a one-time decision, but a daily practice, a choice we make every moment, every day, to trust, to believe, and to walk forward in hope. For faith is not a feeling, but a commitment to stand firm, even when the winds of life threaten to knock us down. And as we continue to walk by faith, we find that our lives are shaped by it, that our choices, our actions, and our words are influenced strength of our faith. And through this faith, we discover our true calling, our true purpose, and our true identity. And in the end, we realize that it is faith more than anything else that gives our lives meaning. For it is faith that connects us to the divine, to one another, and to the world around us. And it is in this connection that we find the peace, the joy, and the fulfillment that we seek. And the more we lean into our faith, the more we see that it is not just a part of our lives, but the very essence of it. And through faith, we are able to live with confidence, knowing that we are never alone, and that whatever comes our way, we are equipped to face. Well, faith is the assurance that we are held in the palm of a loving hand, and that with each step, we are walking towards something far greater than we could ever imagine. Overcoming the imposter syndrome is a journey that many of us face in silence, struggling with feelings of inadequacy, believing that we are not truly deserving of our success or accomplishments, that somehow we are fraud. And it is only a matter of time before others discover that we are not as capable or skilled as they think we are. And though this may seem like a personal battle, the truth is that imposter syndrome is experienced by millions, even by those who appear to have everything under control. And it thrives on self-doubt, on the fear that we are not enough, that our achievements are nothing more than a fluke. And these feelings can be paralyzing, keeping us from fully embracing our potential. And though it may seem easier to push these thoughts away or ignore them, it is important to confront them head on, to understand that imposter syndrome is not a reflection of reality, but a distorted view of ourselves. And the first step to overcoming it is recognizing that everyone has moments of doubt. Everyone has challenges to face, and no matter how accomplished, is immune to the struggle of feeling not good enough. And when we begin to accept that these feelings are a natural part of the human experience, we can start to challenge them, to question their validity. For the truth is that our achievements, our talents, and our success are the result of hard work, perseverance, and yes, even failure. And those who experience imposter syndrome often fail to see the value in their own efforts, attributing their accomplishments to luck, to timing, or to the help of others. But the reality is that none of us succeed alone. And while the support of others is important, it does not diminish our worth or our contribution. And as we learn to accept our successes as our own, we begin to shift our mindset, moving from a place of self-doubt to one of self-empowerment. And this shift does not happen overnight. It requires patience, self-compassion, and a willingness to challenge the negative beliefs we hold about ourselves. For overcoming imposter syndrome means learning to recognize and embrace our true value, not based on external validation, but on our inherent worth. And this requires us to let go of the need for perfection, to stop comparing ourselves to others, and to understand that no one's journey is the same, that success is not a destination, but a process. And in that process, we will stumble, we will learn, and we will grow. And this is not only okay, but necessary, for it is through our struggles that we gain wisdom, strength, and resilience. And when we begin to recognize that our worth is not tied to our achievements, but to who we are as individuals, we can begin to silence the voice of imposter syndrome and replace it with a voice of encouragement, a voice that reminds us that we are worthy, capable, and deserving of the success we have earned. And as we embrace this new narrative, we start to walk with greater confidence, no longer doubting our abilities or questioning our place in the world, but standing firm in the knowledge that we are exactly where we are meant to be, doing exactly what we are meant to do. And even when the doubt creeps in, as it inevitably will, we are equipped to face it with courage, knowing that we are enough and that we are more than the sum of our fears, our failures, and our insecurities. In the end, overcoming imposter syndrome is not about achieving perfection or never feeling self-doubt, but about accepting ourselves, flaws and all, and trusting that our journey is valid, our voice is valuable, and our worth is not defined by our accomplishments, but by the simple truth that we are human, and we have everything we need within us to succeed and thrive. And by embracing this truth, we free ourselves from the grip of imposter syndrome and begin to live fully, authentically, and unapologetic. You are enough even when you don't feel it, even when the world around you seems to be telling you otherwise, even when your mind fills with doubts and insecurities that try to convince you that you're not worthy, not capable, not deserving of the love, success, and happiness that you long for. And yet, in the deepest part of you, even if it's hard to believe that you were created with purpose, with value, and with all the potential you need to not just survive, but to thrive. And the truth is that you don't have to prove your worth to anyone, not to the people around you. Not to society's standards, not to the voices of doubt that whisper in your ear, because the reality is that you were already enough the moment you were born, and you are enough right now in this very moment with all your imperfections, all your mistakes, all your flaws. Because your worth is not defined by your achievements, your appearance, or your mistakes, but by the fact that you are uniquely you, it's easy to get caught up in the pressure to meet certain expectations, to live up to a version of yourself that others have created. But the beauty of life is that you get to define who you are. You get to choose how you see yourself. And when you truly embrace the fact that you are enough, you begin to see yourself not through the lens of comparison, but through the lens of self-love and acceptance, realizing that all the qualities that make you who you are, the things you consider are flaws or imperfections, are part of the very fabric that makes you whole. And in those moments of self-doubt, when you question whether you are enough, remember that the answer is always yes, because you are enough in your humanity, in your vulnerability, in your strength, in your courage to keep going even when things are tough. And it is precisely in these moments of struggle and uncertainty that you find the truth of who you are. And when you stop seeking external validation and start embracing the truth within you, you begin to see the power in your authenticity, in being true to yourself, and letting go of the need to be anything other than exactly who you are. And the more you affirm this truth, the more you begin to act in alignment with it, living your life from a place of confidence and peace, not because everything is perfect, but because you know that you are enough just as you are. And it is this deep knowing, this unwavering belief in your inherent worth that allows you to show up fully in your relationships and your work and your passions. Because when you believe you are enough, you stop hiding behind masks or trying to be someone else, and you allow yourself to take up space in the world, knowing that your presence matters, that you have something valuable to offer. And this shifts the way you interact with others, because when you truly understand your worth, you begin to see the worth in others, and you show up with more kindness, more grace, more empathy, and you become a source of encouragement, reminding others, just as you remind yourself, that they too are enough. And so you start to create a ripple effect where the truth of your worth spreads out into the world, and others begin to see that they are enough too. And this is the power of embracing your own enoughness, because it creates a chain reaction that heals, uplifts, and inspires. And when you live knowing that you are enough, you live with freedom, freedom from the fear of judgment, freedom from the need to prove yourself, freedom from the constant pressure to do more or be more, because you realize that you already are more than enough. And in that realization, you find peace, knowing that your worth is not something you need to earn, but something that has always been within you, waiting for you to embrace it. And so every day, with each decision, with each step you take, you carry that truth with you. You are enough just as you are, and this truth becomes the foundation for everything else, the bedrock upon which you build your life. And when you live from that place, you begin to attract the love, the success, and the joy that you deserve. Because when you know you are enough, you open yourself up to receive all the good things that are meant for you. And in this process of realizing that you are enough, you begin to live a sense of fulfillment and purpose, knowing that you don't need to change who you are to fit in or to be loved, because the very essence of who you are is already worthy of all the blessings that life has to offer. The power of influence is a force that resides within each of us, whether we recognize it or not. And it is not something that requires fame, fortune, or a large platform, but rather it is something that is woven into the everyday moments of our lives, in the way we speak, the way we act, and the way we interact with those around us. Because influence is not just about making grand gestures or changing the course of history, but about the subtle, quiet moments that can shift someone's perspective, inspire change, and leave a lasting impact. And when we understand this, we realize that our words, our actions, and our attitudes have the ability to shape the world around us, not just through the obvious moments of leadership, but through the small, seemingly insignificant exchanges that we have with others. And the beauty of this is that we all have the power to influence regardless of our position or status. True influence comes not from authority or control, but from the ability to connect with others on a deep human level, to listen with empathy, to speak with kindness, and to act with integrity. And in doing so, we inspire others to be their best selves, to rise above their limitations, and to believe in their own potential. And while the power of influence can be used for good, It can also be used to manipulate, to deceive, and to control. And this is why it is so important to be conscious of how we use our influence, because the impact of our actions can ripple out in ways we may never fully understand. And when we use our influence for positive change, we can create communities of support, of kindness, and of growth. But when we use it for selfish or harmful purposes, we can create divisions, fear, and distrust. And so it is crucial that we recognize the responsibility that comes with influence and that we use it to build others up, not tear them down, to lift people to higher standards, not lower them to our own. And when we begin to recognize the power of influence within us, we are called to be mindful of how we use it, to ask ourselves whether our words and actions are serving to strengthen or weaken the relationships we have with others. Because influence is not just about how we impact individuals, but also how we contribute to the larger collective energy. And when we choose to use our influence in a positive way, we begin to create a culture of kindness, trust, and mutual respect. And it starts with the belief that each person we encounter is worthy of dignity and respect. And when we show up with integrity, honesty, and empathy, we begin to make the world around us a better place. And influence grows not through manipulation or coercion, but through authenticity. For people are drawn to those who lead with authenticity, who speak their truth, and who act in ways that align with their values. And when we understand the weight of influence, we begin to see that every decision, every action, and every word matters, because it all contributes to the environment we create and the world we build together. And the most powerful influence we can have is not in our titles, our positions, or our accomplishments, but in the way we make people feel, in the way we show up for others, in the way we inspire, empower, and encourage. And when we use our influence with the intention of helping others grow, we not only change their lives, but we change our own. And it is through this process of giving and uplifting others that we come to see the true power of influence, which lies not in what we take, but in what we give. And as we embrace the power of influence with humility and grace, we recognize that we are part of a greater story, a story of connection, of love, of support, and of change. And in this, we find that influence is not just a tool to achieve our own success, but a responsibility to contribute to the greater good, to help others find their voice, their purpose, and their strength. And by doing so, create a ripple effect that can touch lives in ways we may never fully understand, but that will leave an imprint long after we are gone. And the legacy of our influence will live on in the people we've touched, the lives we've changed, and the difference we've made in the world. And in the end, we realize that the power of influence is not in its ability to shape the future, but in its ability to shape the present, to build relationships, to create communities, and to inspire growth. And when we use this power for good, we become part of something greater than ourselves, a movement of love, of compassion, and of transformation. Stepping out of our comfort zones is one of the most transformative decisions we can make, for it is only when we step beyond the familiar, the safe, and the predictable that we open ourselves up to growth, to new experience, and to discovering the depths of our potential. Because staying within the boundaries of comfort might feel secure, but it is within the challenges, the unknown, and the discomfort that we truly evolve. And while it is tempting to remain where things feel easy and manageable, we must remember that growth never happens in the place of comfort, but in the space of uncertainty, where we are pushed to stretch beyond what we thought was possible. And it is in these moments of discomfort that we learn the most about ourselves, about what we are capable of, and about the strength we never knew we had. And though fear often holds us back from taking that first step, we must remember that courage is not the absence of fear, but the willingness to take action despite it. Because the greatest opportunities often lie just outside our comfort zones, and every time we push ourselves to try something new, to face something that feels intimidating, or to take a risk, we are expanding the boundaries of what we believe is possible. And with each step we take, no matter how small, we grow more resilient, more confident, and more attuned to our true potential. And it is important to recognize that stepping out of our comfort zones does not mean doing something reckless or thoughtless, but rather it means taking intentional action towards something that aligns with our values, our goals, and our dreams. And when we face the unknown, we allow ourselves to be open to new perspectives, new ideas, and new opportunities that would never have come if we had stayed within the safety of what we know. And though the process may feel uncomfortable at times, it is precisely in these moments of discomfort that we gain clarity, strength, and a deeper understanding of who we are and what we want from life. And as we embrace this discomfort, we begin to realize that we are capable of more than we ever thought possible, and that the limits we place on ourselves are often self-imposed, and the moment we choose to step out, to take that leap of faith, we break free from the invisible barriers that have been holding us back. And by doing so, we set ourselves on a path of endless possibility, where the fear of failure no longer defines, but rather the belief in our ability to overcome challenges and grow stronger through them becomes the driving force. And it is in these moments of stepping out that we begin to find our true power, our resilience, and our ability to navigate through life's uncertainties with grace and confidence. And while the unknown can be intimidating, it is also where the most rewarding experiences are found, where we build character, develop new skills, and expand our horizons. And as we continue to step out of our comfort zones, we create a new sense of normal, one that is defined by boldness, courage, and the willingness to embrace whatever comes our way. And with each new experience, each new challenge, we become more comfortable with uncertainty, more willing to take risks, and more excited about the opportunities that are. Because we understand that the greatest rewards come not from staying where we feel safe, but from stepping into the unknown and trusting that we have the strength, the resources, and the wisdom to handle whatever comes our way. And as we continue this journey, we discover that stepping out of our comfort zones is not a one-time event, but a continuous process of growth. And each time we face something new, we expand our capacity to handle greater challenges. And the more we embrace this mindset, the more we realize that our comfort zones were never meant to define us, but to be a starting point for our greatest adventures. And in this pursuit, we come to see that life's most fulfilling moments are not the ones where we played it safe, but the ones where we dared to step out, to take risks, and to embrace the unknown with open arms, knowing that it is there in the discomfort where we truly find ourselves. The impact of small steps is often underestimated, as we tend to focus on the grand gestures, the big breakthroughs, and the dramatic changes. But the reality is that lasting transformation often begins with the tiniest of actions, the seemingly insignificant decisions that, when repeated over time, accumulate and compound into something much greater than we could have imagined. Because every journey, no matter how monumental, begins with one small step. And it is in these small steps that we build momentum, that we gain confidence, and that we create a path forward. And while it can be easy to feel discouraged when the change we seek seems far off, it is important to remember that every step, no matter how small, is progress. And when we take consistent, intentional actions, even in the smallest of ways, we are moving closer to our goals, to the life we desire, and to the person we are becoming. And in fact, it is these small, steady steps that often lead to the most profound shifts, because they allow us to build habits, to develop discipline, and to form a foundation that can withstand the challenges that come along the way. And it is easy to get caught up in the idea that we need to make drastic changes all at once. But true and sustainable change is rarely about taking giant leaps. It's about embracing the power of gradual, consistent effort that adds up over time. And when we focus on what we can do today, no matter how small it may seem, we are creating a ripple effect that will lead to big and bigger results. And these small steps are not just about achieving a goal or completing a task. They are about who we become in the process, because each small step shapes our character, strengthens our resilience, and teaches us valuable lessons that we can carry with us as we move forward. And often it's the very act of taking those small steps, even when we don't see immediate results, that helps us overcome self-doubt and builds a sense of trust in ourselves. And as we continue to show up, day after day, taking one small step at a time, we start to realize that we are capable of so much more than we originally thought. And the key is in trusting the process, knowing that these small, seemingly insignificant actions are leading us somewhere meaningful, even if we can't always see the destination. And the power of small steps also lies in their ability to make change feel more manageable and less overwhelming. Because when we break a large goal or challenge into smaller, more achievable tasks, it becomes less daunting. And we are more likely to take action instead of being paralyzed by the enormity of the task. And as we make progress, no matter how incremental, we begin to build momentum. And that momentum creates a sense of accomplishment, which fuels our desire to keep moving forward. And before we know it, those small steps that once seemed inconsequential have added up to a journey that has transformed us, our outcomes. And it is important to remember that not every step will be perfect, And some days we may stumble or fall behind, but even in those moments, the small steps we've taken still have a powerful impact because they are part of a bigger picture, part of a lifelong journey of growth and learning. And when we reflect on our progress, we realize that it is the sum of all those small, consistent actions that have gotten us to where we are. And the beauty of small steps is that they are accessible to anyone, and no matter where they are starting from or what their circumstances are, because they don't require a big leap of faith or a major transformation. They simply require the willingness to start, to begin wherever we are, and to trust that the path will unfold as we take each small step forward. And as we continue to move into the direction of our dreams, no matter how slowly, we find that it is not the speed of our progress that matters, but the fact that we are moving forward at all. And when we look back, we realize that all those small steps taken with persistence and patience have brought us to a place of growth, achievement, and fulfillment that we could never have reached without those first small actions. And so the impact of small steps is not just in the destination they take us to, but in the way they change us along the way, shaping our mindset, strengthening our resolve, and helping us see that even the smallest of efforts can lead to extraordinary results when they are made with intention, consistency, and belief. And the beauty of this process is that there is no step too small to matter and no effort too insignificant to count, for each step, no matter how tiny, is a step towards something greater. And with every step we take, we are closer to becoming the person we are meant to be. Embracing your unique journey is one of the most powerful acts of self-love and acceptance you can offer yourself for the path you are on. Though it may not always look like anyone else's, is yours alone. And it is woven with your own experiences, challenges, victories, and lessons that are uniquely tailored to you. And when you begin to truly embrace your journey, you stop comparing it to the paths of others. You stop wishing for a life that looks different, and instead, you start to see the beauty and purpose in every twist and turn, and every high and low. Because every part of your journey, no matter how difficult or unexpected, has contributed to shaping you into the person you are today. And by accepting the uniqueness of your own story, you free yourself from the pressures of conformity, from the expectations that others have placed on you, and from the belief that you must follow a predetermined script in order to be successful or happy. For your journey is not a race to be won, but a story to be lived. And it is in embracing the authenticity of your own experiences that you begin to find peace, joy, and fulfillment. Because you realize that no one else has walked the same road you've walked, and no one else will ever have the same impact on the world in the way that you do. And though you may encounter setbacks, detours, or moments of doubt, it is important to remember that every step you take, even when it feels uncertain or challenging, is leading you to where you are meant to be. And it is through those moments of struggle that you discover your own resilience, strength, and your own capacity for growth. And when you choose to embrace your journey, you begin to let go of the need for perfection or comparison, for you understand that your path is not meant to mirror anyone else's, but to unfold in its own time and in its own way. And it is this acceptance that allows you to be present in the moment, to savor the experiences that come your way, and to trust that you are exactly where you need to be at every stage of your life. And as you embrace the uniqueness of your journey, you begin to see the lessons that are embedded in each experience, the ways in which they have shaped your character, your wisdom, and your perspective. And you come to realize that every moment, no matter how small or seemingly insignificant, has a purpose. And even the moments of hardship have a deeper meaning, for they are the ones that teach you the most about yourself, about what you are capable of, and about the power you have to overcome adversity. And it is through embracing these lessons, both the easy and the hard ones, that you gain clarity on your true calling, on your passions, and on what matters most to you. And this clarity allows you to move forward with confidence and purpose, knowing that you are walking your path with intention and authenticity. And when you embrace your unique journey, you also begin to accept that there will be moments when your path will be different from others, and that's okay. Because your experiences will give you a perspective that no one else can offer, and it is through your perspective that you will be able to impact the world in ways that only you can. And so, rather than trying to fit yourself into a mold that doesn't suit you, you start to honor the individuality of your story, of your process, and of your pace, trusting that the journey itself is just as important, if not more so, than the destination, for it is the journey that molds you, teaches you, and allows you to experience the richness of life in all its complexity. And as you continue to embrace your journey, you begin to see that the path you are on is one of growth, one of discovery, and one of empowerment. Because by accepting the uniqueness of your own story, you step into your own power. And with each step you take, you find the courage to be yourself unapologetically and to live your life with authenticity, knowing that your journey, no matter how winding, is exactly what it's meant to be. And in embracing this truth, you give yourself permission to live fully, to embrace the unknown, and to trust that every step, every challenge, every victory, and every setback is an essential part of the incredible story that is uniquely